everyone, welcome back to the channel. I did a poll where I was asking what you guys wanted to see next because I have a lot of different things I like to talk about, not even just racial related, but I know being mixed race, it is very passionate for me to talk about those things. And when I did the poll, it was a few votes, I think maybe 13 votes or so, and it's really kind of split in the middle. I mean, I think it's like 25% here, 25% there, but slightly what was above was the jealousy among mixed people of different backgrounds. And I know that that's a thing as well because just being mixed, a lot of times, especially on this channel and in the sectors that I watch, it's usually people with black admixture. So you can be black and white or black and Asian, black and Latino, like whatever it is. But I want to talk about all mixes of people and the jealousy that actually can arise within the mixed community. So a mixed person being jealous of another mixed person for different reasons. And it can be someone who's mixed with black and white and they're jealous of another person who's mixed with black and white, or it can just be someone who's jealous of a completely different mixture. So I want to talk about that because it's not talked about a lot. And obviously every race of person can be jealous, and people compare their phenotypes, their hair textures, and skin color, all of these different things, and especially women. I mean, I know men also have those issues, but women, when it comes to the beauty standards and depending on where you live or what part of the world, the mixed experience and being mixed race means navigating multiple cultural and racial identities, often in a world that wants to categorize people into neat boxes and wants you to identify with one race because it makes people feel uncomfortable when you start to embrace multiple cultures because people are very simple. And although there are people out there that would say, yes, you just represent everything that you are, but there is so many people that are very stuck in old ways. It's hard when you are mixed because you have so many different identities that are going through your veins. And sometimes when you want to connect or you just feel that connection without even asking for it. And when you want to embrace that, it can get complicated with other people around. And so it's just very hard already being mixed, but then trying to figure out where you fit in into all of that. And then you meet other mixed people and their experiences are a little bit different than yours, depending on what they are mixed with. It just becomes a little bit more complicating. And the comparison as a root of jealousy, it's natural for human behavior, but for mixed people, this often takes on a racial and cultural component. And someone who is black and white, for example, might feel envious of another mixed person who is Asian and white. And that's a good example because maybe someone who's black and white might believe that the skin tone of the white and Asian person and their hair texture or their facial features might give them an advantage in certain social or professional situations. And then also a mixed person who feels a stronger connection to one side of their heritage may feel jealous of someone who appears to blend into both racial identities more easily. So I want to break that down real quick because someone who's Asian and white, when you think about it, especially a woman, because for men it might be a little bit different. But Asian women and white women, at least on one of the statistics I looked at a while back with dating apps, white women and Asian women were the top as far as who men wanted to date. But when you look at it from the male perspective, Asian men were at the lowest and black women were at the lowest. So it really just depends on who you ask. I want to break down because I'm a woman, so obviously I'm going to look at it from this woman's perspective. So if you're mixed race, and I have dealt with this before, seeing somebody who's half white and half Asian, or even like just Latino and white, that is something where they don't have or seemingly have the same experiences because it's way different when you're mixed with black. I think that just is already, you get a different experience being black because that is something where even in other cultures and other parts of the world, it's looked at. And someone was commenting on one of my videos, and this person brought up a really good point in the Latino community where they actually police blackness and they still believe very much so in the one drop rule. And so they will say, well, you're black, so this person is mixed biracial, like half black, half white. And, the Latinas will like call her like negra. and say that she's black. And that's very true. Being part Latina, I can say that they will do that. And especially the ones that are more Euro Latina, or they have more of the Spanish blood versus the Afro Latina. And it also depends what country they're from too, because like Mexico, for example, it's way different than Cuba. And they would sometimes look at you if you're mixed with black and look down upon you versus someone who might be Asian and white. They would look at them, even though they're not Latina at all, but they would look at them as a higher rank of mixed. And growing up as a little girl, it's not about hating your race. It's just about how others perceive you, because regardless of what people say, you do care growing up how people perceive you. Maybe as you get older, it's something that you don't think about anymore because it's like, who cares what people say? But at the end of the day, we do want to belong somewhere. Not necessarily be in a group and follow people, but just we want to have community, whether it's with family, friends, and people who you can share things with and be honest with. And so when you're mixed, you have all these different identities running through you and you want to belong somewhere, but you don't quite fit in anywhere. And then when you're around other mixed people, there's like this commonality that you have, whether you're mixed with the same thing or not. But then when you're navigating in the world and people are being people, you see somebody who's half white and half Asian, and then you're part black. So you're just like, wow, okay, you might feel a little bit inferior as a child, especially. And some people that never goes away. But that's a big thing that I wanted to dissect. And again, thank you to that person who commented. And I probably would do separate videos with the Latina community because that is something I want to talk about. And that's also part of my cultural blend. So that is something that if you are mixed and you have that in you, even though they are also mixed technically, because Latinos, they are mixed with African and European and indigenous DNA. And a lot of them, some have more than others, of course, depending on where you're from. But a lot of people in the Latino community will deny the blackness. And even Dominicans that look black, they literally look like they're black they start speaking Spanish. You're like, oh, okay. But they will even deny their blackness. It's really a thing. So that's just something that I'm going to probably talk about because that's a whole different level. But yeah, the beauty standards, we've talked about that before too, but they vary across cultures. And mixed people are often fetishized or exoticized because of their ambiguous appearance. And this can create a sense of competition or jealousy when someone feels that another mixed person's features align more with the societal beauty ideals. So like I was saying, Asian and white, a lot of people, there's the rumor, a lot of people love Asian women. And then, of course, we know that the white beauty standard is still really prevalent, especially in the United States, but really all over the world, there's a little bit of that influence. And so when you have somebody who's the mixture of that, they often it's like a good mix. I mean, this is my humble opinion, but I think that people with black admixture or people with Asian admixture are often really gorgeous. Obviously, there's people that don't look good with those mixtures, like with every race, but that's such a good race because black and Asian are really dominant features. And so when they mix with white or mix with some other culture, you see the Asian and the black, but it mixes well with whatever other culture that they're blending with. And it just makes like the best of both worlds or multiple worlds, in my opinion. And of course, this is coming from a mixed person, so I always am all about being mixed and everything too. I'm not saying that people can't enjoy whoever they want to date and it's their race. If you're white and you want to be with white people, you're black, you want to be with black people, that's cool too, but I'm just saying being mixed, I'm always going to support that. And I do feel like you get such an interesting, beautiful blend of cultures, and it kind of represents that. So anyway, if you look at someone and they're a different mix and you feel a little inferior to a certain beauty standard or mix and they look more white, for example, you might get jealous. Or if it's just two mixed people that are black and white, but the one is lighter skinned or has looser hair textures. I know in my case, that has been on both ends, really. Like, I have been jealous before, and I've had people jealous of me with the looser hair texture, because I have a pretty loose hair texture, but then of course I've met people that have a looser hair texture. And growing up, I wanted to have straight hair, like bone straight. I knew a girl once where her hair was just naturally straight. I mean, it might have had a little bit of a wave to it, but that's it. She didn't have curly hair, where I have curly hair and I have to straighten it in order for it to look like it's naturally straight. And it does look naturally straight once I do all that work, you know? And I remember being jealous of her hair, because I was like, you can literally go to the pool right now, just swim, and your hair will just dry and it'll be fine. It's not going to be all curly. So it is really interesting how that happens. And then some people that are mixed, sometimes like if they're mixed with white, they might get lighter eyes. And so that's also something where people might feel inferior to, where they think, oh, this person has dark hair and tan skin, but they have these green eyes and they just look so, so beautiful and so ambiguous, and you don't know, like you can tell they're mixed, but you don't really know what they are. And it's just something that people can really feel jealous of. If you have the brown eyes and the dark hair, curly hair, whatever, although that's gorgeous, but to some people it may not feel enough. Like it's not interesting enough. They would actually attempt to say that they had other things in them, but they really didn't, because I have a friend who, her mother is Black and her father is Palestinian. And then, of course, I'm Black, white, Cuban. And then there was another girl that I was friends with, and she was just Black and white, which is totally fine. But she would think of other things. She's like, oh, I have Indian, like Native American, which I feel like a lot of Black people in the United States and white people say they have Native American in them. She really didn't. Like, and if she did, it was somebody way far down the line. But just to kind of sound a little more interesting than just Black and white, even though that's good enough. But it's like that in these streets, in the mixed streets. Like, we really do feel that way sometimes. And then another thing that can come up, if you're mixed with a rich culture and white or Black, and you speak the language. So especially in the Asian community, I know other communities as well, like the Spanish community, they're the same way. But if you are mixed with that, but you don't speak the language, you might as well not claim them, because they're pretty much going to be like, no. And it also depends on where your mother's from too, because if your mother is the one who's Latina or Asian, chances are you're going to learn the culture and probably participate in a lot of the cultural events. Like I have friends that their parents or their mother is from like certain countries in Asia. Like I had a friend who was Chinese and white, and a lot of the different festivals and holidays, she knew all about that. She could speak Mandarin because her mother. And, usually we know the women do a lot of the child rearing and they are with the kids more. So they learn a lot more of the culture, versus if the mother is white, it's not that they can't learn the culture, it's just different. And especially if you have a girl versus a boy. And if there was a boy, maybe it would be a little different too. But that's also something that people can be jealous of as well, because if you're just like Black and white, or even if you're Asian and white, but you don't speak the language of what you're mixed with, or you don't feel like you have an interesting enough mix, put an inferiority complex or jealousy attached to that, just because I don't feel like I'm enough when it comes to my mix. There is a historical context and social conditioning as well when it comes to this, where the jealousy is rooted in. There's just the different racial stratifications with slavery and migration have all contributed to how different racial mixes are perceived and treated. And then certain mixes have historically been given more privileges or seen as more acceptable by dominant cultures, that again, it leads to those internalized jealousies between the mixed people. And a person who is half white may feel that their proximity to whiteness grants them more privilege, while simultaneously feeling isolated from their non-white community. And then also someone who's mixed with Black may feel that weight of anti-Blackness, even within mixed communities, while envying those who can more easily pass as racially ambiguous or white. That's a big one. And I can speak really a lot on that because I'm mixed with both of those. And for me, I look more ambiguous. Most people have to ask me what I am, or they think, okay, well, you're mixed with something. Like if they don't say Latina or Arabic, then they're like, okay, what are you mixed with? They know I'm not just one race. I've never gotten, you're just one race. So with me, I know that I look a little different than, a lot of like your typical, I'll just put air quote, but typical biracial person that's black and white, because I do have other mixes. And then the same with my brother, although my brother, he kind of looks more like mixed. So it just depends on who you ask as well, because some people might look at it and say, well, I don't know, you could be this, you could be that. But the ambiguity is something that a lot of mixed people can be jealous of as well amongst each other, because I'll just say, for an example, if you have an inferiority complex being black, like you don't really want to be black or you don't want to be darker or whatever the case is, then you can see a mixed person who is lighter than you or has a different hair texture, maybe a different eye color. And you can just think, well, why? We're literally the exact same mix. How did that happen where they get the hazel eyes or the green eyes or whatever, and they have lighter hair and their hair texture is almost straight, where I have maybe type 4 hair, because there's mixed people that have type 4 hair. And that's just something that happens with the genetics. I mean, being black, that's a dominant gene. So a lot of times mixed people will have a lot of those dominant genes, but then maybe those recessive genes will come out as well. It's just really interesting how that works. But just coping with the jealousy and then turning inward among mixed people, it often reflects the internal insecurities about belonging and self-worth. I know for me, I had to do a lot of inward thinking and just be introspective about my life, because growing up, I was always raised to say I was mixed and love both of who I am. I mean, as far as the Cuban, my grandfather's the one who was Cuban, and I mean, he would speak a little bit of Spanish to me, but he didn't teach his children how to speak Spanish. And so that's why my dad and, my uncles, they don't really identify as Cuban, because they were born in the United States. Their mother is black and they spoke English. They didn't speak the language. And that's what I was saying earlier about the language. If you don't know, they don't really consider you. Even if you're mixed, even if you looked like you were a part of that culture, if you don't speak the language or you don't know like the dish of the country, you don't know the culture, then you're not them. They don't consider you part of that crowd. And, like I was saying too, the Latino community, they're very like, oh, you're black. Yeah, no. If you have a little bit of black in you, you're black. For the most part, obviously not all Latinos are like that, but for the most part, that is something that I've noticed as well. But yes, it's just really a powerful tools in dealing with the jealousy and just trying to be self-aware of it as well. And just acknowledging that these feelings stem from societal expectations and not from personal failings. And mixed people can begin to turn their jealousy into self-compassion. And that's something, again, I had to learn how to do and still learning, because for me, like the curly hair journey, I wished so bad that I had straight hair. I hated curly hair, hated it. And even when people would tell me your hair is so beautiful, oh my gosh, you have the perfect curls. They're not too tight. They're not too loose. They're just perfect. But I hated it because in my mind, that wasn't beautiful. And I didn't see curly hair all like that. I saw my mom and my aunts and my cousins, and they all have straight hair. And maybe they have a little bit of a wave, but really it was not curly. So it's just me. I have these curls and I always thought that it was so hard to manage. So I would always just have my hair up, and it was always so long too. So I would just put it up in a ponytail or in a bun. Sometimes I would want my hair done, but I would always like have one of my parents straighten it when I was little. And I actually had a perm one time when I was little too, just because I just was like, let's do a permanent straightener. So I did so much to my hair. It really took me being an adult and just learning every day to love what I look like naturally as far as my hair. That's been my biggest thing in mine. Like I think every mixed biracial person has their thing. Mine was my hair. I wanted it to be straight, but now I don't wish that it was straight. Of course, I still enjoy wearing my hair straight sometimes, but I'm so glad that it's curly and it's the texture that it is, because I like the versatility. I like to be able to wear my hair curly one day and it looks gorgeous. And then the next minute it's like silk pressed and it looks like, just long silk hanging down my back. I love that, both. But that took a while for me to get to that point because of societal beauty standards and not because I hated myself, even though I guess technically that was a part of myself that I didn't like, that I wish wasn't there. But it's because I thought my life would be easier if I had straight hair, because when my hair is straight, I don't have to do anything. I don't have to like spray it. I don't have to put anything in it. I just can go. But when it's curly, I have to make sure that it's looking good. Like the curls are popping. They can't just be looking all weird, And it's just something that I had to deal with and that a lot of people have to. And then if you're not mixed with black, or if your hair's not curly, maybe it could be something else that you're dealing with as well. And I know skin color is a big thing too, especially if you're thinking of Asian and white. So a lot of Asian people, they are lighter, but they also do a lot of skin bleaching as well. And they do a lot of different beauty enhancements to make themselves look or appear lighter. Of course, white people are white. So when you have somebody who's mixed with Asian and white, then you have someone who's lighter. But I have known so many Asian and white people that still, they feel like they look too Asian. Or they don't look Asian enough, but they definitely don't look full white, because you could always pretty much tell. Like I said, Asian and black are very dominant. You can see it when they mix. You can have someone that they're like, I feel like a freak because I'm white as far as my skin, but I look like an Asian person, but I really don't look like an Asian person because they can tell that I mixed. And it's a whole thing. There was this video I was watching where it had black and Japanese versus white and Japanese and their different experiences living in Japan. Like some of them lived in Japan. I think all of them pretty much knew the language. So that gives them pointers. But even them knowing the language, and even some of these people living in Japan as mixed people, they still did not get treated like Japanese people, because it's so weird. That's how it is. We're navigating this where we don't fit in anywhere. And then we already have that complex. And then the complex of the beauty standards and feeling like, man, I'm just a freak sometimes. And that's how I felt, like I don't belong to any group. And that's why I made this channel, to kind of have all mixed people, not just black and white, although I mainly am talking from a black and white standpoint, because that's what I mix with predominantly. And that's where I live in the States and the history with that. So a lot of my mindset and things that I talk about has to do with my life experiences, but I also have traveled a lot and been to other countries. I've lived in other states. And so I know how people look at race and culture a different way too, and how you're perceived in other parts of the world. And that also kind of helps you. And that's what kind of helped me love my curls a little bit more too. Just being around other people that don't center a certain look, if that makes sense. So yeah, again, jealousy among mixed people, whether it's black and white, Asian and white, or any other combination, it's rooted in societal pressures and historical legacies and internal struggles with identity. And it is important for mixed individuals to recognize that these feelings are normal, but also to understand that they are often based on external factors that are beyond our control. And by focusing on self-acceptance and building community with other mixed people, these feelings of jealousy can evolve into understanding and being able to have this dialogue of, okay, we can relate. Because what I see a lot too, and that's just human nature, people tear one another down or have an inferiority. Because when you think about like half black and half white, or you think about maybe black and Asian, or something completely different that's not a black admixture, I think most people that are mixed with black and people that are not mixed with black at all, but they are mixed, they have a completely different experience and may not even consider each other in the same group because they're not the same mixture. But to me, I think that we have more in common than not just because, we don't have the same culture. That, of course, that's the thing that we don't have in common, but the experience is the same as far as the rejection on both sides. Because like I mentioned, the Japanese that were half black and half Japanese, and there was half white and half Japanese. So they're on kind of opposite sides there. They have in common, they're all half Japanese, but one's black and one's white. and their experience was exactly the same. And they sounded exactly like my experience here in the United States as a Black, white Latina. And I really was like when my friend showed me, I said, oh my gosh, I'm not Japanese, but I can so relate to what they're saying, because it's like that for us mixed people. So again, we have so much in common with other mixed people. We don't have to just stick with Black and white or whatever you're mixed with. You don't have to just stay in that community. That's what's so beautiful about being mixed. Your identity, it's fluid. You can go to other cultures even. Like with my husband, he's from Iran, so they have a completely different culture, but I'm able to speak with them in their language and just kind of adapt to that, because when you're mixed, you have to adapt anyway because you don't fit in anywhere. So that is the beauty about it. But there is the jealousy that comes with it as well, and it's just something that when you learn to really accept who you are and your internalized feelings of any kind of jealousy or whatever you perceive to be as beautiful or better, just knowing that all mixed people, for the most part, have some type of struggle. Maybe some are worse than others, but they're all around the same boat there, where they don't feel like they fit in. And it's just something that people are jealous sometimes, and we compare, but we just have to learn to accept who we are. But that is the end of this video. I will definitely make more like this. Maybe I'll start a series on just different story times of being jealous in the mixed community. I have a lot of different stories, and I'm sure some of you as well that are listening. So if you do, just please comment down below, like what were your experiences being mixed, or even if you weren't mixed, but if you know someone who was, or if you were jealous of other people that happened to be mixed with something that you were not mixed with, then please leave your comments below. I would love to hear that. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.